These are all fantastic two-player games that I have praised many times on this channel, but sometimes they just feel like I have my head on the board for half of the friggin' game, and I don't always want to play nice. Sometimes I want to actually engage with my friend at the table. Sometimes I want to destroy my friend at the table. And I think I know the perfect list of 8 S-ranked two-player board games to accomplish such a friendly task. We start this highly competitive two-player fight to the death with Undaunted Normandy. Undaunted Normandy is a two-player deck-building wargame set during the invasion of Normandy, where you and your buddy command squads of riflemen, scouts, and gunners, building your deck by adding new units and battling for control of the map. Most deck builders sort of let you fall asleep during your opponent's turn, but in Undaunted, turns are fairly short, and you're actually excited to see what area your opponent will advance on, or fearful of who in your squad of brothers might not make it home. Your opponent loads up on snipers, and suddenly you're paranoid of every inch of open space. They rush a rifle squad at your flank, and now you're scrambling to reroute and accept you'll lose ground. Every card they play is impacting you, and it just can't be ignored, which makes the entire playthrough exciting and engaging, regardless of whose turn it is. And the deck you have, it is constantly shifting. Duplicate cards represent a unit growing stronger, so the more copies of a squad you shove into your deck, the more that squad is able to accomplish on the battlefield. Plus, every unit, thankfully, earns its place. Scouts up a movement for your men, gunners suppress the enemy, and riflemen are fragile, but they get to take objectives. Now, I've heard the criticism a few times that Normandy doesn't have vehicles, but honestly, the whole experience just feels far more visceral and intimate without them. Like even the cards themselves feel oddly more intimate. Every card has a name and a face, same pose across the squad for legibility, but different mustaches, different expressions, a unique name their mother gave them. I'll be damned if it doesn't feel like you've lost a person when your opponent makes you discard a card, rather than simply losing a piece of cardboard. It's a pretty cool design accomplishment. It's almost as impactful as if they had a version where each soldier had an individual bio in an included lore book. Future expansion? But beyond deck building, it really does feel like a game about managing risk. Can you take that zone before the gunners tear you squad apart? Is pushing into their territory the smart thing to do? Or are you going to get your entire squad killed and look like an idiot? None of it comes down with an obvious answer, and that's sort of why this game is loads of fun to play competitively with a friend. My next favorite two-player game is one of the best hidden movement games in existence, Mind Management. Mind Management is a hidden movement game where one player becomes the recruiter, secretly moving through the streets of Zanzibar to recruit psychic spies and engage in propaganda, while the other plays a rogue agent, trying to track him down and stop him and his followers. You and your friend sit down to play. One player disappears behind a screen with a dry erase map, moving one space at a time, never revisiting a spot, quietly stacking up recruits at billboards and idols. The other plays the agent, retracing the recruiter's steps and predicting his interests, all while stopping the plans of his immortal recruits. It's a simple cat and mouse formula, and yet every single thing you and your opponent experience at this table, every question asked, every space investigated, just oozes information, forcing both of you to engage in some of the best mind games in two-player gaming. And when you get a clue or you think the agent is onto you, you get this awesome surge of adrenaline and panic, feelings that not a lot of games typically inspire in me. Both of you sort of trying to puzzle everything out. And the best part? It's one of the few hidden movement games where I generally enjoy playing both sides. Often, one side in these types of games feels like it just has more cool shit to do. But here, both players are burning their brain to get ahead of their opponent, and the process, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And then there's the shift system, these sort of like unlockable content boxes that you and your friend open depending on who wins each game. What's awesome is that these aren't filler cards, they're entirely new mechanisms that provide more options on your turn. And I think that's fairly rare in this genre, and somehow none of it overcomplicates anything. And it all comes in the base box instead of being sold to you piecemeal, a trend that seems to be on the rise these days. I see you, natures and layers. I see you. This is one of those games that Kim and I often describe as being easy to grasp but wonderfully hard to master. I could teach this to a brand new player in like 10 to 15 minutes, and yet despite that, it still has enough depth that I'm challenged with fun and engaging choices every single time I play. Mind Management is a phenomenal interactive two-player game. Now for the updated version of a game I have mentioned numerous times on this channel, Hexadome Legends. Hexadome Legends is a two-player skirmish game where you and your opponent draft a small team of fighters and a personal deck of cards to do battle for area control in a fast, sports-like arena. I am a huge fan of Aristea. I own literally everything, and I've painted it all. So I'm super happy to say that this version is indeed an upgrade on the original game. But this isn't a comparison video. The cool thing about Hexadome Legends is that your primary objective isn't killing your opponent. You're actually doing your best to get yourself into the scoring zone and keep your opponent out of the zone. And yanking someone out of that zone in the final second of the round really is one of the most satisfying experiences you can have in a board game. Plus, you get to build your team before the match and your hand of cards, which just adds another layer of strategy and fun, especially for those people like myself who enjoy the construction process that happens outside of the game. And the best part of construction is that every character actually feels distinct and creative. Too many of these games have a tendency to just boil down to like a +1 attack or something, like Zombicide. Here, the characters have unique identities and play vastly different. And you use these characters in the game by secretly locking in your activation orders for each character at the start of the round, hoping your opponent doesn't read your intentions. Once activations flip, you're maneuvering into a scoring zone using your hand of tactics cards, which cover movement, combat, and a handful of awesome positional tricks that can also bully an opponent out of a zone. So every round becomes this sort of layered guessing game. Are you locking in your fastest unit early to grab board position, or holding back to sort of punish whoever your opponent commits first? Do you burn a strong card now to secure the zone, or save it because you know they'll try to bump you out in the final activation? And the whole thing can play in like an hour. It's easy to teach and you don't need to touch a paintbrush to play. It plays like a self-contained board game straight out of the box. That's rare for anything with miniature in the description, and it's exactly why this is one of my favorite two-player confrontational board games. But I think I know just the way to get it on everybody's wish list. Video game adaptation. Finally, I can take my Hexadome session online and continue playing the two-player game I love. Long after my real in-life friends have abandoned me because I'm just too damn good, and not at all sad that they won't play with me anymore. Infinity Hexadome Tactics is a more accessible version of the board game that fully embraces the best parts of digital gaming, like a story-driven campaign that unlocks new champions to feed my crippling completionist addiction, and of course, cosmetics, which are sort of like miniature painting but for digital dolls. Look at this one. He's a zombie.
Wow.
I can even take my skills online in tournaments to make myself feel better about my mundane life by obliterating strangers I'll never meet and seeking happiness in knowing that my perfectly curated team I spent months building made that stranger's life miserable for 15 minutes. So head on over to Steam and add Infinity Hexadome Tactics to your embarrassingly massive wish list of games you really shouldn't be buying because you're broke like me, and you don't even play the games you do own. Release is September 10th. I'll see you in the arena. I'm kidding, of course. You'll actually never see me because I'll be a much higher rank than you. The next game is a tableau builder that can be just as aggressive as some war games. Seasons. Seasons is a two-player card tableau builder where you play as wizards drafting items and spells across 4 seasons, converting energy into crystals to summon powerful familiars to outscore your rival. Sometimes you want to share in the glory and build something together with your gaming partner. And then other times, you want to hear their lamentations as you crush their carefully laid plans and watch their cards driven before them. Seasons provides me the latter. But what sucks is that nobody seems to talk about Seasons anymore, and I sort of understand why. You know, there's no shortage of two-player card drafting tableau builders on the market. But the sheer meanness that's sort of baked into Seasons, combined with the volume of genuine creative card abilities, just keeps me coming back and praising it every single time. I am hooked the moment I start drafting cards at the start of the game. You're plotting your entire strategy from your opening hand, and it scratches the same itch as Terraforming Mars, that thrill of seeing a stack of cards and corporations in front of you and immediately building your plan around them. Except Seasons is much harsher because you're drawing from far fewer cards than Mars ever gives you, making every single pick in that opening draft an agonizing commitment, requiring an enjoyable amount of forethought. And the cards themselves are wonderfully creative, artistically beautiful, and have loads of unique powers and abilities and endgame bonuses that make each game feel very rewarding, especially when you get to play those cards. And even though the game is confrontational, it never feels relentless. The take that cards are sort of rare enough that the game gives you room to breathe and actually build your strategy. But just knowing they're sitting in that deck creates this constant looming threat, impacting each decision you make. Seasons is an excellent game and one I would never dream of to play more than 2 players. And next is my 2025 Game of the Year, A Gest of Robin Hood. A Gest of Robin Hood is a 2-player coin system war game where one player commands the Sheriff of Nottingham's forces while the other plays Robin Hood, running a guerrilla campaign of theft, ambush, and insurrection in Sherwood. Just forget the Disney movie, okay? This is not a swashbuckling adventure where Robin Hood swings in, says some funny shit to the sheriff, and then vanishes off into the trees. There is no anthropomorphic crap in this game. This is a genuinely serious war game using the much beloved and feared coin system as inspiration to tell an asymmetric guerrilla versus state story that sets the tone and narrative for this 1 versus 1 game beautifully. Playing the sheriff, you genuinely feel powerful, but constantly aggravated. You could absolutely stomp Robin Hood out in a specific parish if you wanted to, but doing that risks losing ground elsewhere. And that's the exciting tension. Every strong move gives your opponent the initiative because nothing you do goes unanswered in this game. Like if you want to earn money, well, you could just send out your caravan to another city and then hope that, well, Robin Hood doesn't ambush it and take all the money. But you knew he was going to do that, so you set a trap and made it so that a bunch of guards sprung out and then killed him. Now, playing Robin Hood is the opposite. You feel less like a dashingly sexy fox hero and more like a cockroach, popping up, causing damage, and then vanishing before the boot lands on your face. But what's interesting is that almost every action has to be sort of telegraphed first. You want to rob a carriage? Well, your merry men need to be already sort of lurking in the bushes near it. You want to sway a district to your cause and cause a revolt? You need people on the ground there first. Nothing for Robin Hood feels instant. It all requires very careful planning and bluffing, and it's what makes the game so much fun. But I'll be honest, the game is not perfect. Robin Hood has a harder time than the sheriff, and things can sometimes feel like fate is seriously pissing in your Cheerios. I've had games where I get caught in a carriage trap, lost too many merry men, and then watched the whole campaign collapse in what felt like just minutes of playing. But even in that loss, the tug of war of hiding and exposing and outmaneuvering my opponent was some of the most tense 2-player cat and mouse experiences I've had at a table. The game does a great job of telling an awesome story that you get to share with your friend, and for that, I love it, flaws and all. And next is easily one of the most epic games on this list, War of the Ring. War of the Ring is a huge game set in Tolkien's Middle-earth, where one player guides the free peoples in a desperate attempt to destroy the One Ring, while the other commands Sauron's overwhelming armies across the map. War of the Ring might just be the single best expression of 2-player storytelling I've ever put on the table. Every game of this thing makes me feel like we're going far beyond just playing a regular board game. It feels like we're genuinely retelling the books, and in many ways making it our own through our own choices on the battlefield. Choices like how to use these amazing mechanics behind the action dice, which in this game can be absolutely brutal. On any given turn, you can't do everything you want, so you're sort of constantly negotiating between what you need and what the dice actually gave you. And so being able to make that constraint work in your favor leaves you feeling genuinely clever. And when you pull off the perfect turn, you don't really care if it wasn't the turn you planned for at the start, because you feel really damn good. And the cards in this game are awesome. Every single one can be played for its combat value or its event. And sadly, the better the combat side, the better the event, which means that every card you play is an agonizing decision that you have to commit to and use every drawn card to perfectly fit the precise moment you find yourself in at the table. Once again, working within the system to outperform and outweight your opponent. Is this thing a bloody nightmare to teach? Absolutely. Does it demand more emotional and physical stamina than almost anything else in my collection? Yes. Will you forget a rule halfway through and have to stop and sort of dig through the manual? Inevitably. But I bet you won't remember those problems the day after you finish. Instead, you'll remember the journey you and your friend cobbled together, one that diverged from Tolkien's brilliant tale the second the dice hit the table, and one that is uniquely yours. I've hidden this fact for 3 long years on this channel, and I want to come clean to you all. My name is Mike, and I sometimes play traditional chit-based war games. And this game behind me is Combat Commander. Combat Commander is a 2-player card-driven war game where every card in your hand doubles as an action and a dramatic event. Players play event cards and engage in tactical maneuvering, all to capture the most objectives and gain the most victory points. I know many of you board gamers may skip this part, but I ask that you listen. This is the only traditional war game on this list, and I promise it is awesome and pretty damn accessible. Here's how it works. You're maneuvering squads across a hexacounter map of a selected World War II scenario, and instead of a traditional, I move and you move turn order, both players are pulling cards from their own fate deck to gain actions that they need. Do you want your squad to move? Well, you need the right order card. Do you want to lay down fire on an enemy position? Well, you need a card that lets you shoot. Run out of the right card in hand, and you're sort of stuck improvising with whatever you got, which means half of the tension of this game is just managing a hand that you can't fully control. And when combat goes down, you're not rolling dice. Instead, you flip the top card of your fate deck and read the results in the corner, along with whatever event is printed on the same card. Sniper ambush, gun malfunction, prisoners of war. Combat Commander does some fantastic multi-use card play, and best of all, it's all abstracting away some of the elements of warfare that would otherwise bog the game down into sort of like a 6-hour playthrough that gives most of you nightmares when you think about traditional war games. Now, I know this can all sound like a lot of randomness, but you sort of have to stop staring directly at the chaos and instead learn how to make it work to your favor. Reading the battlefield and rising to adapt to every event that attempts to destroy your men, all while squeezing whatever value you can out of whatever the deck ended up handing to you. Luck be damned, the better player will always win. Combat Commander Europe is a masterpiece of player-controlled storytelling and one hell of a 2-player wargame for anyone thinking of dipping their toes into this gigantic ocean of a genre. Finally, we have a game that often gets lost among its more popular brothers. 1960, The Making of the President. 1960, The Making of the President is a 2-player card-driven game recreating the Kennedy-Nixon election, where you build momentum, campaign across states, and fight to control the issues of the day on the road to the White House. We're closing out this list with a game that I have played for probably 20 years. But honestly, you could swap in Twilight Struggle or Labyrinth here and I'd be just as happy. I loved all of them. But Making of the President is an awesome streamlining of everything those games do well, and it doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Plus, I just realized I have way too many war games on this list. Although I guess this is a war game too, just with politics. Most card-driven games, or CDG for short, punish you if you're holding the opposition's card in your hand. Labyrinth and Twilight Struggle will absolutely destroy you sometimes, and honestly, that stress is likely what has caused some of my gray hairs in the last 20 years. Making of the President keeps the agonizing decision-making but softens the punishment a little, which makes it a much more flexible game depending on what kind of night you and your opponent are looking for. The momentum system is almost as good as the card play itself. You're constantly weighing which cards to throw at your opponent to burn through their momentum tokens, because once they're gone, you can play whatever you want with impunity. You can even preempt an incoming event by spending 2 of your own tokens, which it's a brutal price, but sometimes that's exactly the move you need. So hand management is still agonizing, but just a little lighter than Twilight and Labyrinth. 1960 is great because it feels as though every single mechanical system in this game matters. Ignore issue positioning and your opponent racks up momentum and endorsements. Ignore campaigning and they'll outright beat you at influence. There's no dominant strategy here. You have to sort of split attention across campaigning, issues, debates, and advertising, or you'll get punished by your opponent. 1960 Making of the President is a beautiful distillation and streamlining of what makes those 2 CDG games so fantastic, and honestly, it just doesn't get talked about enough. And those were some of my favorite S-ranked 2-player board games that are incredibly confrontational. Originally, when Kim and I had made our top 10 2-player list a few months back, I had this big laundry list of games that I was thinking of putting on there, and she just took the list and it started crossing off most of them. She's like, no, I don't like this one, I don't like this one, I don't like this one. So I wanted to find, I knew right when the video ended, I wanted to find a space for those games, and so I figured I would make this video. Let me know in the comment section what your favorite two-player confrontational board game is. And be sure to join our Discord. They are super friendly dudes down there. I'm not one of these like YouTubers who for some bizarre reason they want to create a community, but then they put the thing that makes the community behind a paywall. Nope, it's free. You just freaking join there. Although, if you want to give my Patreon, you can do that too. I'm just saying. Or more importantly, you could be one of those people who just like don't subscribe to the channel. You watch the videos, but you don't subscribe. You're just mooching. You're mooching my videos. I'm kidding. But you should subscribe. I'll see you later. Bye. What's up, man? Oh, I should have included Crossfire. Crossfire, is it Milton Bradley? No. Hasbro? Crossfire, you get caught up in the crossfire, 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 crossfire.